Retired Party Girl is an empowering, sober community for women who are retired from the party but not the fun. Retired Party Girl focuses on mental health normalization, self-love practices, female empowerment, and the deglamorization of consumption and marketing of alcohol. Today, I have Tori Felder from Retired Party Girl as our guest. I'm so excited to have stumbled on her Instagram. I've been alcohol free for close to 4 years, and I think it's such a beautiful thing that she created this for sober and sober curious women. So, Tori, say hello and introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Misty. I am Tori Felder. I live in Seattle, Washington, and I started RPG, Retired Party Girl, back in September, but got sober the day before New Year's Eve, 2019.
Wow. Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram on around New Year's when it popped up that it was your 1 year anniversary.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, did you create this during the pandemic? Because I feel like so many people created, I feel like that's like a lot of really positive things that have come out of the pandemic is that people have had like the time and the inspiration to create stuff like this.
Definitely. I don't know where I would have found the time or the creative energy to create the Retired Party Girl if it weren't for the pandemic. I say that knowing that so many people lost their jobs, lost family members, lost loved ones during that time. So in no way do I take it lightly, but I too was let go from my job because of the pandemic. I was working in schools, contracted with schools. And so it gave me all of this free time, and I was going through a ton of transitions with my own sober journey. And it started as me just kind of sharing on social media. And then I had the idea of creating like a membership community. And it kind of just grew from there.
I love it. So tell me your story, your personal story with sobriety.
Oh my gosh, I feel like we do this all day, but I'll give you the short version. So,
I feel ya.
yeah. Okay, so short version is that I partied for like 11 years. I started partying very, very young. I was 13, 14 years old, drinking Four Locos. I don't know if you remember those.
Yep.
Four Locos. Experimenting with drugs, hanging out with a lot of older people. I eventually grew out of that stage because I grew older, but I was still drinking. I was still blacking out. I was still experimenting with drugs. And then now I'm, in my early 20s, and it's very normalized to black out, and your friends laugh at how silly you were acting the night before. And it's kind of made in this like light way of like, oh, you lost your wallet again. Hee hee. Haha, this is so hilarious. But I was really starting to feel super, super bad about myself, and really, really bad about the choices I was making when I was drinking. And enough was enough. So 2 years ago, I actually had my first try at sobriety, and I went for about 70 something days. And I remember going into my therapist's office because she was the one that told me to start with 30 days. And I remember being like, this is amazing. I feel so good. And I came in with a list of all of the things that have improved in my life. And then eventually just kind of fell back into it, drank for another couple years. And then this last December, well, I guess 2 Decembers ago now, 2019 is when I finally like made the decision, and it stuck.
I love that. So, you said you're in your 20s, I'm in my 30s. And I feel like I have now, like looking back and just seeing like through Facebook, I've seen a lot of younger women just, issues with depression. And I guess I feel like when you're out and you're partying, people see that version of you smiling, laughing, having fun, and they don't see the version of you when you go home and you get in your bed and you can't sleep, or you wake up the next day with the booze blues and you're depressed, and people don't know that version of you. And then I feel like, people, when something happens and they realize their friend was depressed, then they're shocked. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just love that you're highlighting and focusing on this. And so, definitely we need to talk about Retired Party Girl Club. So tell me more about that and how people can get involved.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention too, before I go into that, what you were just saying. I wish so badly something. So I'm in my later 20s now, but at the time, you know, when I was partying a lot, I was in my early 20s. And I see these people from RPG who are like 21, 22, and I'm like, you're so amazing. You're going to miss out on so many horrible things that are never going to happen to you now because you're choosing not to drink. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they won't wake up with strangers and wonder like how the hell they got there, and they're not going to wake up with $400 Uber bills. And I'm like, you're just saving yourself so much misery by making this choice early. So it just makes me think of that. But yes, Club RPG is a membership community for women or people who identify as women. Um, we have a ton, it has grown in a lot of interesting ways. So we have different groups within RPG. So we have RP Gay. The G in RPG goes to gay, which is led
Oh,
by,
cool.
yeah. So it's for our LGBTQ plus folks. That's led by Becca. We have a consciously single group that meets every week. That's for women who are consciously single, trying to focus on ourselves, not search for external validation from partners. We have Super Soul Sunday, which is our Sunday night meeting. We make goals, we set intentions. And then we have some like random stuff scattered out, like Zumba is tomorrow morning. We have yoga Sunday morning. So basically, it's a membership community for alcohol-free fun, alcohol-free community. We talk about mental health. We talk about dreams, hopes, our futures, and we make friends with each other. So basically, we're one big support group.
I love that because it can be hard when you're transitioning from, the drinking life to sobriety because it's like you don't really you have a whole set of new friends basically, or at least for me, like I felt like I realized many friends weren't really my friends. They were just my drinking buddies because they didn't call me and check on me and see how I was doing. So it's nice to feel like you have that support group and that club and those friends and people who are like-minded. So I love that.
Definitely.
So I saw a recent post about, because of the holidays and making the assumption that everyone drinks. And so typically when you're at a wedding or you're celebrating, like recently New Year's Eve or Christmas, people are ready to start pouring you a drink. So tell me more about these type of situations.
Yeah, so an example I like to give, it's actually not my story, it's my friend's story. And she told me that the only time she ever came close to drinking was when she was at a wedding and it was time for the toast, and they just passed out champagne flutes. And she felt like she had no alternative. And so my biggest thing for that is like always have an alternative. And she says now, like, I would have had no problem bringing alcohol-free champagne. I don't think it would have been that big of a deal. And I could have participated in the toast with my own alcohol-free champagne. So yeah, I think people just naturally assume. Another story, also not my story, but something worth mentioning, is a person who follows me on Instagram sent me a message and sent me a picture of the hotel she was staying at, sent her drinks up to her room as a thank you for staying with
Yes.
her. Or was it you?
No, it wasn't me.
I was like, oh
But
my God.
I was just like, yes, because my husband and I on our honeymoon, we had a bottle of champagne and I was like, oh, that's so sweet. But like
Can't
he's
drink.
not really into champagne and I don't drink. So I'm like, we like left it and we put a note and we're like, thank you so much, but we don't drink, so maybe someone else can enjoy it.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Those things where you assume, and had you not been so strong in your sobriety, or maybe like not had a partner that was supportive, maybe that would have been really triggering for you. And for this person whose hotel room or hotel sent them up whatever wine to their room as a thank you, they said that they sent it back and was like, hey, next time you should ask if the people are drinking before you just send up alcohol. Because again, like, had she not been so strong, it might have been a really triggering situation for her. So
Absolutely.
I just think it's best to not assume, because you don't assume everyone you meet smokes cigarettes or does cocaine.
Right.
So like,
That's so true.
so why assume people drink?
Well, and I used to bartend. for a long time. And so it's really hard to not. So I kind of had, before I went completely, or I've been sober or alcohol free since, for, like I said, close to 4 years, but I had many times where I would go 6 months or a year, and I kind of was playing around with it, but just not really like committed.
Yeah.
And every time, if I would be out at a bar, out with my friends back then,
Mhm.
I would always get like a soda water with a lime and a splash of cranberry
Mhm.
in the rocks glass, because I was like, I wanted to look like I'm drinking, because I want people to leave me alone, because nobody would ever respect that. People were like, no, just have one. Come on, have one. And they would get shots and and I would, so like, despite saying, no, I don't drink, and still wanting to be social, people like refuse to respect that. So I
So,
learned over time, I'm like, if I have a drink in my hand, I'll just say, no, I'm good, you know?
yeah, and
So
it almost sucks that we have to do that because I agree. My I feel like I'm telling all these stories about other people, but another friend of mine just went
no,
to
I
a
love it.
party. She just went to a party and she brought alcohol-free wine, and she said it was like a wine exchange, and she said people didn't even know, because you don't think to like look at the fine print on a wine bottle, right? See, so she's like
Right.
people were drinking it and they didn't even know,
Oh
which
my
is
gosh.
so funny.
And another thing too is like people still make those assumptions. So like the other day, my friend and I, we went to West Palm because I'm in Florida, and we went to some super bougie place. And so, she drinks, we sat at the bar. It was like beautiful. And I ordered a grapefruit spritzer, and she had her drink. So we did a cheers, and I never post those on Instagram or Facebook because I feel like people automatically just will assume that that's a cocktail.
Yeah.
And so she sent it to her husband, like, oh, we're having fun. And he was like, I thought Misty didn't drink. I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, she
I
doesn't,
know.
dummy.
Exactly. That's why making mocktails has been so fun, because it's like a
hmm
way to join in on what everyone else is
Oh,
doing, but
yeah.
without any of the negative consequences.
I love it. I'm totally all about the mocktails. And it's funny because, like, later, like the next place we went to, I was like, oh, I would love a spritzer or some type of mocktail. And the guy was like, I can make a soda water cran. I'm like, you have lavender simple syrup. I'm looking at his like this beautiful bar setup. And I was like,
Get
okay,
creative.
how about this lavender simple syrup that you make right there? And I'm
Yeah.
like, with some cranberry juice spritzer. I'm like, and it was amazing. It was so delicious. I'm like, why are you trying to serve people a soda and cran? Like, you can be more creative than that.
That just happened to me. I was just at a super nice Italian restaurant. We were outside, and I asked, I was like, hey, do you have a full bar? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, do you think you could just like make me some type of non-alcoholic mocktail? Because I have been places where they're like, oh my gosh, yes. And they're like so accommodating.
Yeah.
It's like, no. And I'm like, okay, do you have ginger
Yeah.
beer? So I just ordered a ginger beer, but I walked away and I was like, okay, he had so many things at his disposal that he could have, like bitters or like you said, simple syrup, or totally
Yeah.
put something together, and it was just kind of lame.
Exactly. So what type of advice would you give anyone who has recently become sober?
Oh my gosh, probably just to be gentle on yourself. Like, you don't realize it, but your body, I mean, you can probably relate to this too, from like
hmm
early sobriety. Like your body goes through so many changes. I remember being so exhausted. I still am sometimes, like totally exhausted, and it's hilarious because I'm like, I would go out to like 2 a.m. and
Yes.
like fine, and then now I'm like in bed at 8 watching Netflix, and for some reason I'm so exhausted. But I would say just be gentle. I mean, you're gonna like want sweets. I eat a ton. I
Oh
eat
my gosh.
it's an issue, but I'm so gentle with myself because I know I'm still going through such a major transition. And so I just say be really gentle on yourself. If you're not working out as much, if you're more tired, if you want to eat cake more than usual, like these are all normal things, and it's
I
okay.
can totally relate to that, the sweets.
Yes. And it hasn't gone away either. Like here I am a year sober, and I like still I never used to order dessert. And now it's like my favorite type of nightcap is to order
Mhm.
a fancy dessert. But at least I'm not hungover, you know?
I know. Yeah. I love desserts too. I'm looking right now at my stack of creme brulee,
That's
the
my
ramekins that
favorite.
I ordered them off Amazon last week. Cause I'm like, I'm going to start making creme brulee.
That's my favorite dessert is creme brulee.
Yeah. We
Mm,
got to have a vice, right?
yep.
What about advice, or what do you have to say about someone who's not necessarily sober yet, but considering it?
I think this is just so different for everyone because I think people look at sobriety as like a black and white thing, um, which I think accounts like mine and communities like RPG are changing that narrative, but it's kind of a slow process. I think people think like you either have to be like waking up in jail and lost custody of your kids and getting a DUI to change, or um, you're a total normal drinker and it's okay to black out every once in a while because everybody does it, or whatever the narrative is. So it's different depending on like where you are on that scale. I know for people like me who I didn't necessarily consider myself an alcoholic, just try 30 days. That's where I started, like I was telling you earlier. In therapy, my therapist was like, just try 30 days. I loved it so much, I went another 30 days. And then, eventually fell back into it. But because I planted that seed 2 years ago, I think this time that's why it stuck. And like you,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
months or like your 1 year, and like then eventually you had 4 years.
Hmm.
It just
Yeah. Cause if I actually had a time where so I had so I could have been like close to 5 years, right? I went on like 6 months or so where I was doing the sobriety. And then, I think I was like, well, I'll just have like champagne or like a glass of wine or a beer here and there. And I was just done, I had like a glass of wine at a friend's birthday. So that's her birthday is actually my anniversary. But the next day, I just felt like crap. I was hungover, and I was just like, you know what? I'm done. Like, why am I continuing? And so, if I took out that like day or two, then I would have been longer. But I'm like, no, I'm counting it. I'm starting over.
yeah.
Um, but I feel like one of the issues that I feel like many people struggle with is, like you said, just normalizing it. Like you have those shirts and like the rosé all day, and, mommy's wine glass where it's like,
Yep.
the coffee cup that, and that's just what it is. You look on Facebook and people are like, oh, I'm going to have a huge glass of wine tonight. And it's like, that's great. And of course, no judgment to them, but um, I just feel like that type of social media and like, how it's commercialized like in that way has normalized it for especially women, to go down that route. You don't even really realize it.
Women and especially mothers, it's the way big alcohol markets to us, and
Hmm.
it's disgusting. Have you ever read Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker?
No, I'll have to check into that. Quit
Yeah,
Like a Woman.
Quit Like a Woman. Yeah. So that was the first Quit Lit I read, and it put everything into perspective for me. And it's exactly what you're talking about how big alcohol markets to mothers and to women specifically through these tactics like mommy needs her sippy cup, or
Ugh,
day all day, or making the bottles pink and Instagrammable and things like that. But really it's the most deadly drug. People die more from alcoholism than any other drug, but here we are like
yeah.
posting pictures with it. It's just, once you learn all of these things, I think that's the other thing too. When you were like, yeah, I was just done on your
Hmm.
friend's birthday. I think once you learn all of these things and then you see that your life can go on without drinking, and it can go on in such like a smoother way, you're like, I
Hmm.
don't need it anymore. Like I feel like I would have that experience too. If I were to drink again, I'd be like, why am I even doing this? It doesn't do anything for me anymore.
Right. Yeah, so for me, I have a long history of alcoholism. Not necessarily for me personally. Like I don't know if I would, like you, kind of like you. I don't know if I would call myself an alcoholic, because for me, like quitting wasn't really a big deal. It's like, okay, I'm done. Of course, there's times where I'm like, that would be nice, and it tempted or whatever. But I was able to stop, and um, so I don't know. I guess we'd have to figure out like what constitutes as alcoholism or not. But my father was an alcoholic, and he was on and off my whole life, and I have a lot of trauma from that. But when you said like alcohol is deadly, my dad, he passed away coming up on February 11th will be a year, and he passed away from cirrhosis of the liver. So I had to watch him deteriorate that way. And his skin was literally yellow, and just seeing him in the hospital, it was awful. And it's hard to see other people like family members or people that you love just going through that. And because it really can destroy your body. I've seen it firsthand, and that was,
Lives. It
yeah,
destroys families, it destroys communities. It's not something to joke about. Like we're,
hmm
like rose all day. It's like, okay, I get it. It rhymes. It's cute. Rose's pink. I get it. It's, you look cute in the Instagram picture or whatever, but it's just, there's other things we can make cute. Like, let's not make the addictive substance, murderous substance, the cute,
right,
like it ruins so many people's lives. And I'm
yeah.
also a child of an addict, so I totally
hmm
understand you when you say that. So
Yeah. And for me, it was mostly when I first was, I guess, sober curious, was, I was at the time I was single, and I was going out, like, so I have kids, and on the nights I didn't have them, I didn't want to be home
mhm.
alone. And so I would go out. And I guess for me, I kind of just, I was gaining weight, and I was miserable, and I was depressed and making stupid choices. And I was just like, one day I was like, I don't want to live like this anymore. I'm miserable. But also, like, what are my memories going to be like? I'm going to look back on my life, and they're going to be blurry, stupid memories at a bar. And I just wanted to live my life. I wanted to start enjoying Florida where I live, and start kayaking, and, walking, and doing cool stuff. And it was just like, I don't want my memories like to be at this town bar with, it's like nothing changes ever there. No one, it's the same people, same day. No one cares about you.
The same
And
things that they're
I
always
was over it.
about. Yeah. Yeah. You wanted to start living life instead of numbing out from it.
Yeah. And I was surprised when, people were like, I support you. I'll join you. I'll totally, like, we'll hang out. This will be fun. And no one did. They were like, they all wanted to save they were hungover. They wanted to save themselves for,
Mhm.
that night. And so
Mhm.
I remember, like, one of my first outings, I went to do, because again, I'm in Florida, so an airboat ride. There's like alligators, and I was like going to do this airboat ride on like a random afternoon. And it was like slow, I guess, at the time. So they were like, when I went to get my ticket, they're like, who are you with? And I'm like, just me. And nobody else at the time was like gonna do the ride. And they're like, sorry, we can't with just like one person.
Oh
So
no.
I ended up like basically calling out my friends, like on Facebook. And I was like, listen, y'all said you'd hang out with me, and here I am getting denied my airboat ride. So I ended up going with a friend like the next day. But it was funny. But it's just nice, like I said, to have that support. And you kind of have to like make new friends. And for me, I didn't necessarily make new friends, but I realized the friends that I had, that I kind of put on the back burner, that weren't the party friends. I started to focus on them. I was like, these are amazing friends that I turned down hanging out with to hang out with losers. And, they're here this whole time, and I was able to see that. Whereas before, I feel like I didn't.
It is such a transition. It really is. And it happens kind of slowly and all at once at the same time. And I'm actually going through something similar right now where I have my friends that I've been friends with for 15 years, and then these new friends, and there are people who align with my life that and I want to say like my new life, but that sounds so cliche, right? But my life has changed in so many ways since being sober, and my goals have changed, and my energy levels have changed, and what my boundaries have changed. Like literally everything has changed. And so I'm struggling right now, even a year into it, like where do I place everyone in my life? Like, there's people I've lost and I have to grieve that and I have to deal with that and I have to let that go. And then there's people that I'm nurturing a new relationship with. And that's weird when you're an adult. That's hard to be like, will you be my new friend?
It is.
It's not a comfortable situation whatsoever. So yeah, there's a lot of different like dynamics when it comes to friendship, but I will say connecting to a new friend through sobriety is so great because it's so different than the bathroom friend that you make at the bar. Like, you're so pretty, like we should text, and then
That is so true. I have so many friends in my phone that I met from the
yeah,
bathroom. That's hilarious.
it's like Sarah, bar bathroom, or like it says the name of the bar I was at when I met them. And then we were like texting the next day, like, it was so good to meet you last night. And then we never see each other again.
True. Then
Yeah.
you're kind of like, wait, who was that?
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, she was nice, I think. But then, an example is like I went on a picnic with two new sober friends and we actually talked and we got to know each other and we sat under this big tree and we sat out a blanket and we text all the time and have plans to get like a matching tattoo, all three of us.
Aw.
So like it hits deeper and like you connect on things that aren't surface level because you're both or all of you are going through a similar experience.
I love that. That's true. And you're also, sober together and you're not waking up with like, did I say that? Like, because
Yeah.
you're actually retaining the conversation.
Right.
So I have a question and I don't know if you know the answer or how this works, but the label of sobriety. So I've never really given myself that label this whole time because I do consume cannabis. So how does that work? Are you able to say that you're sober or if you smoke weed, basically? How does that work?
I eat edibles too. So like I consume cannabis also.
Yeah.
And I have friends that do also. This is really funny. I don't know if you saw my post, but I get asked this all the time in my DMs.
Okay.
Like, can I call myself sober? Or I feel like a fraud. Can I join RPG if I'm just sober curious? Or I feel like I can't call myself that because I have wine once a year or on my birthday or whatever. And what I always tell people, like, call yourself whatever you want. Like, if you feel like it's the term sober fits you, for me, I feel like it fits. Or I use alcohol free, or you can say retired party girl, or you can say hangover free, or you can say alcohol free lifestyle, like dry. You can use the word dry. Like there's so many different things you can call yourself. And I think where this comes from, like this fear of like, what's my title? I feel like that comes from AA, honestly, and no disrespect to people in AA, but it's like, my name's so and so and I'm an alcoholic. Like you wear that label and no matter how many years you've been sober, and I know this because my mom was in and out of AA, no matter how many years you're sober, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. So like that's like on you for the rest of your life. And that's why people are like, can I call myself this? Can I call myself this? And it's like you can change your mind. Like if I decided I wanted to call myself dry tomorrow and sober today and you know, whatever I want to call myself. And I feel like people deserve that freedom. We deserve to change our minds. We deserve to call ourselves what we identify with. And it shouldn't matter. Cali sober is people who smoke weed but don't drink or,
Right.
don't drink. But so it's like, I don't care. It's weird to me if people do, in my opinion. Like, why do you care so much what people call themselves if it makes them happy?
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me it was kind of like the person who you were talking about. It's like feeling like a fraud. It's like I don't want to I don't know. I kind of been more open to talking about it cuz I haven't, once in a while I'll be like, "Oh yeah, it's been, when it was 3 years, I was like, it's been 3 years. Yay." And then like moved on, but I do love that for me it's a big deal to me because it's helped me through depression. It's helped me to find my self-worth. It's helped me to, take care of myself better, like self-care, self-love. It's taken me out of a really dark place.
Yeah.
Which is again, that's another reason why I became alcohol free was because of depression too. You know, that does not go hand in hand. It's not a good combination.
Yeah.
And so I was really able to do so much growth and so much healing. And so I feel like that's a huge part of that.
100%. And that's something to be so proud of. And it's like, no one is the gatekeeper of sobriety, and no one has the titles and gives them out like crowns, or whatever.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
like it.
I don't care what people call themselves. I think it's weird if people do care. And like, I might call myself sober today, and who knows what I'll call myself tomorrow. And it's like, if you don't like
Yeah.
that, you're weird. That's
No,
my
I
mentality
agree.
about
I
it.
agree. I know that there's like so many cultures and communities, like just,
Definitely.
and they some of them have rules.
Yes, definitely. But that's my thing with RPG is like there's no shame. I don't want there to be any shame. Women already deal with so much shame for every single thing we do. Like there's mom shame, there's body shame, there's skin color shame. Like we're shamed for absolutely every single thing we do.
Yeah.
We just like be sober or stop drinking without any shame. Thanks. Like can we
Yes,
get
please.
one please?
That's another thing too. Like speaking of that, I feel like when you say, yeah, I don't drink alcohol, there's always a follow-up question. It's like, well, why not?
Mhm.
People want to know why. Like, do you get that?
Yeah. I usually don't go like totally into it. And I feel like if people follow me on Instagram, they know anyway. But it's like, because my life is better without it. Or,
Yeah.
I was psychotic when I was drunk. Or like there's just so many different answers. And it depends on who it is and if I really want to get into it with them or not. But
Yeah, I guess it depends on your mood.
yeah. I'm like, do I have energy right now to explain this or not?
Yeah. So, do you have any goals coming up for Retired Party Girl? Where do you see yourself and what's the plan?
I am dying for COVID. That's probably the worst analogy to use. Cannot wait for COVID to be over.
Yeah.
When it is safe, I want to do like a really big retreat because we've all gotten to know each other so well through Zoom that we were talking the other day and we're like, wait, how tall are you? Because we've never seen
Oh
each other.
yeah.
And we're like, wait, what size shoe do you wear? But we have been getting so close, but we see each other just in this little box. And so I have big dreams of a Mexico RPG trip.
Ooh, okay. I need to join.
Yes,
I am gonna
please.
join.
You
I'm so
totally should.
excited. I will.
Yes.
I love it. So on the blog post, of course, we'll share some episode notes, and anyone who wants to join, I'll have all that information there, of course, and how to find you. Any last minute things you want to discuss or stigmas before we wrap up?
Hmm. Well, we all know like the stigma of, I kind of say this a lot, but I'll repeat it. The stigma of an alcoholic or a quote unquote sober person is like the old wrinkly biker dude. And I just think it's important to recognize like, yes, there are some old wrinkly biker dudes who do identify as that, but there's also this huge population of young, sober, fun, sexy, silly, lively, energetic, lovely humans out there. And sober doesn't look one way or sound one way.
So true. So I also have seen a couple of your posts on Instagram just about, having fun. Like you can still have fun and or no, I think it was today. You can take what was
Wild.
it?
Yeah,
You
the
can
wild
take the
side.
party.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Or no, that one.
You can take the girl out of the party, but you can't take the party out of the girl. So that's what I'm
Yes.
working on. I cannot wait for things to open up to like go dancing and do karaoke and whatever else, like be around people again.
Okay, so I have another random question about just like, is it awkward when you are around people who are drunk?
I
Like
won't
how
stay long.
you just what?
I just won't stay long.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way? I'm sure you have situations.
Yeah. It's like for me, like for some people, I really don't care. It's like, I'll drive, whatever. But yeah, sometimes it can be like just awkward, especially when they kind of hit that next level. Like if they're just drinking and loud and having fun, it's like no big deal. Like I can hang. But when they get to that next level of just like all right, it's like, you don't really want to watch it, you know? It's like,
And it makes sense.
it's,
And it's just like going, I totally agree with you. There is that point where it's like, okay, this is totally fine. They're still kind of themselves. And then it's like a switch flips and it's like, okay, you're not yourself
it's just
anymore.
not fun
Yeah.
because you're seeing it differently. Like when you're drunk too, it can be fun because you're on a whole other level, you know, like whatever. But when you're not and you're seeing it not through the drunk goggles, it's weird kind
It's
of
so weird.
because you're just like, I don't know how to explain it. I wonder, I was like, you know what I mean?
It's
How do you
definitely
explain that?
a weird experience. It's like the only way I can, so I'll give a story to explain it. My friend had her birthday party at a winery, so we went wine tasting, which is great for a sober person.
What
And
did you do?
I went
Just
and I brought
watch?
alcohol-free wine,
Oh, okay, okay.
but I also cried. So
Oh.
I wouldn't recommend it. Anyway, so I went to a winery and they all got super wasted and we got back and I'm talking to my friend about, and she's usually very supportive of my sobriety, but she's drunk and I'm like, yeah, you know, I want to do this thing. It's kind of crazy. Or I'm telling her about something. She goes, do you think you just want to do that because you want to do what you could do when you're drunk sober? And I'm like looking at her and I'm like, okay, like this conversation one is over. Two, what are you talking about? And then so I just look at her and she goes, you hate me. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
like, just good night. That's the only way I can explain it. It's like, we're not having a real conversation. You don't know what you're talking about. So I don't know what you're talking about. And you need to go to bed because this is not
Yeah.
fun.
That is a great way to explain it. It's like spot on.
Yeah.
Yep. That.
That, yep.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation. I've had fun and it's such a great topic. And I definitely would love to do this again. And I'm definitely going to join
Yay.
Retired Party Girl because it sounds like an amazing community that I definitely need to be a part of. So
Yeah, we have
I'm
people
excited.
sober for a long time too. So that would be awesome to have you. And thank you so much for having me on.
Yes. Thank you. Please be sure that you subscribe to the blog, which is bluedreamhealth.com, where you can find additional links and information on this episode. You can also check out the digital magazine on our website, as well as find us on Patreon, where you can be a supporter.